The provincial elections are happening on June 2nd, which is less than a month away. If you're a real estate investor, you might have certain housing priorities, and government housing plans might continue to influence how you choose to invest. So in this video, I'll go over the most important housing ideas from the PCs, the Liberals, and the NDPs. And I'll also talk about how these ideas might affect the housing market if they get put into action. Before I continue, if you like content like this, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you can see more videos like this made specifically for real estate investors in Toronto. I've put the campaign promises into three main groups: the supply of housing, the demand of housing, and details about renting. So let's jump right in and start with the big one: building more homes. Premier Doug Ford put together a housing task force at the beginning of the year to look into our housing crisis, and this group came up with a few key suggestions. The task force says that we need 1.5 million new homes in Ontario over the next 10 years. And to do this, we'll need to get rid of the exclusionary rules that make this impossible and speed up the approvals process. The good news is that all three major parties agree on the same things and base their supply goals on the task force recommendation, which is to build 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years. But that's pretty much all they have in common, because how they go about is actually pretty different. Honestly, the PCs don't say too much about how they will make this new housing supply, but they do promise to use the task force report as a basis for their housing policy. Their point of view is that housing development should be done on a municipal level, and the provincial government should be there to help the municipalities do it more efficiently to ensure consistency across the province when needed, and perhaps more importantly, give the cities the tools they need to get the job done as soon as possible. The Liberals have a completely different plan. They say they will start a new corporation called the Ontario Home Building Corporation and give affordable housing development back to the province. They give more specific numbers, like how they plan on building 138,000 new units of affordable social housing. The Liberals are also more specific about how they will try to get rid of the exclusionary red tape to increase housing supply in low-rise areas. Specifically, they say they will let people build up to 3 units and 2 stories, as well as secondary suites and laneway suites anywhere in Ontario. On top of this, they plan on allowing more density near transit lines, since you can build more homes without parking, and more additions to purpose-built rental buildings, since it's cheaper to add new supply through existing buildings. The NDPs have always been the most supportive of renters, and you can definitely see this in their promise to create a new public agency called Housing Ontario, which will build 250,000 new affordable rental units in Ontario on a provincial level. The rest of the ideas seem pretty similar to the Liberals, like ending exclusionary zoning and adding more units in pedestrian and transit-friendly neighborhoods, both of which were recommendations in the task force report. Even though I'm not too happy about how vague the Ford government has been about the supply side, I do think it is better to deal with development at a municipal level. Each city is different, and I don't see many synergies if things are done on a provincial level. Aside from the Ontario Building Code and as-of-right zoning, most other barriers to new construction are usually local, like NIMBYs, not in my backyard, or local bylaws. So if the provinces are in charge of building new homes, different levels of government could end up stepping on each other's toes and cause more delays. Let's move on to the demand side, which does have less on the table because, as the federal government and the task force report both say, supply is our main issue. On the demand side, the PCs do have the least to say out of the three parties. In fact, I think their main initiative was to raise non-resident speculation tax from 15% to 20% across the entire province, which was already done in March. From the Liberals, they promised a 5% tax on empty homes owned by non-Canadians and a 2% tax on empty homes owned by Canadians, both of which only apply to urban areas. The Liberals also promised to ban purchase by non-residents for 4 years, and this is 2 years longer than what the federal government will do. They promised to improve the buying side by changing things like blind bidding, home inspections, and making commissions more transparent. But perhaps the most interesting bit would be going back to that new corporation that they plan on building. If the Liberals get elected, the homes that the new corporation sells can only be bought by first-time home buyers, so that's definitely something new. Now, I'd say the NDPs take the incentives for first-time homebuyers one step further. They promise a new shared equity program of up to 10% for first-time homebuyers whose household income is less than $200,000 per year. If you don't know what this is, you can refer to something similar that already exists on a federal level. Under the current CMHC shared equity program, the federal government will pay 5 to 10% of the home's purchase price for you, and in return, they'll own the same percentage of the home. Under the federal shared equity program, there are other rules that pretty much limit the purchase price to $800,000. So the NDP's proposed program will most likely follow something along these lines as well. Now, we're fine with putting limits on speculation and foreign buyers, but we don't think buyer-friendly programs will actually work well in the long run. What they do is shift demand to first-time home buyers. So it's possible that the prices of starter homes will go up faster, which goes against the goal of making homes more affordable. This could also cause another shift towards condos, since smaller condos end up being more likely to meet the price requirements of these programs, and that's also the opposite of what the Housing Task Force wants to achieve. Let's talk about the rental side last. The PCs say they will spend $19 million to make the Ontario Land Tribunal and the Landlord-Tenant Board more efficient by adding more staff and improve their technology. As real estate investors, we like this plan. The Liberals have a similar plan with a higher budget of $15 million per year to improve similar efficiencies. But perhaps the Liberals' change to rent control is probably our biggest concern. What's happened was the Liberal government back in 2017 started imposing rent controls in Ontario. Once they stepped out of power, the PCs ended up removing part of that, and right now, only homes built before November 15th of 2018 have rent controls. If the Liberals get back into power, they say they will put rent controls back in place for the whole entire province, going back to square one. Now, the NDPs do have a similar view and will also switch back to the province-wide rent controls. And on top of that, they also plan on closing any rent eviction loopholes. This is probably highly debatable, and you know which side we're on as real estate investors. But the fact is that rent controls aren't all that great for long-term affordability, and there is history to prove it. Without rent controls, some investors will choose properties with higher rental income instead of higher appreciation, like purpose-built rentals, which end up being lower risk from a price volatility standpoint and end up meeting more of the criteria for affordable housing. Other investors will choose higher appreciation over higher rental income for a potential for higher returns. When rent controls are added, rental growth slows down drastically. This means the returns for those who choose higher rental income will also drop a lot, and that will make a stronger case for more investors to choose properties with higher appreciation. In April of 2017, when the Kathleen Wynne Liberals government tightened rent controls for all rental units, this is exactly what happened. New builds that were supposed to be built as purpose-built rentals ended up being converted into condo projects, citing concerns over limited rental growth. So, as you can see, stricter rent controls can lead to less affordable housing being built, which isn't as straightforward to understand. Housing policy is tough, and we know many of these might turn into empty promises, and other plans might have to change based on how the first ones go. Perhaps the best way for the government to help with housing might be to let the free market do what it does best, which is regulate itself through the forces of supply and demand. On the supply side, we do see consensus from all three major parties as we move closer to removing exclusionary zoning rules to allow for more supply organically. In fact, a closer look at the task force report can steer us to figure out where the best growth might be moving forward. By getting rid of exclusionary zoning, rents would go up in single-family homes that get turned into multi-unit rentals. There might even be more units and faster growth in pedestrian and transit-friendly neighborhoods. So, based on the stance, we can expect single-family homes to grow the best, and if we were to pick a price point where growth would be the fastest, it would probably be the lower price points. Without help from the government, these will always be cheaper for end users and investors, and these homes will also be the most likely to get support from our federal and provincial governments. We're big believers in investing in freehold houses in Toronto, and if you want to chat more about this, we're ready for you. We can take a look at your requirements and your preferences and then match you up with the best investment property that fits your needs. After we help you buy it, our team also provides renovations guidance, leasing, and property management if you need it. So just connect with us if you want to learn more about our services by heading to the link in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and look for us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn if you want to hear from us more regularly. I wish you all the best in your real estate investing journey. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.